Justice League, the animated series, and its continuation, Justice League Unlimited, are one of the greatest DC animated shows ever made, and one of the greatest superhero shows ever made, period. Because it has great stories, great action, and the writers clearly understood their characters, which meant that Batman in particular had plenty of badass moments, and we're going to go over his best ones. He unmasks everyone. In this episode, the Earth has been occupied by an invading alien army, and the Justice League need to blend in order to escape from them so they can regroup. So they decide to unmask and walk around as ordinary humans. After all, without their outfits, as long as they don't use their powers, they are just ordinary people. Or they at least look like they're normal humans anyway. But the Flash has his reservations about this, as he's not sure that he's actually ready to reveal his identity to the League. So Batman tells the group that the Flash's name is Wally West, Superman's name is Clark Kent, and that his own name is Bruce Wayne. This is a cool moment, because it shows how smart Batman is, and that he's known all of their identities for a while, probably since the League was formed, and quite likely even before that. And that is Batman through and through. A lot of people joke that his superpower is money, and while the money is definitely useful, Batman's true superpower is his towering intellect. After all, there are a lot of billionaires on Earth, but none of them have the brains to deduce the things that Batman does. Interrogation. Batman captures a group of foreign criminals and begins to interrogate them. And one says that Batman can't understand the language he is speaking, and even if he could, he still wouldn't tell Batman anything. Batman takes a pause and then responds in the same foreign language that he can understand what he's saying, and that he will tell him everything. Now, at the heart of Batman's character, he is a detective, and every detective has to be able to interrogate criminals. And one trick of this is a combination of intimidation and tricking the criminal into thinking you know more than they do. And by speaking back in his same language and in an intimidating way, Batman disarms this criminal. And as any detective will tell you, that is a great start to any interrogation. He defeats Amazo. The entire League is fighting an android that can copy the superpowers of anyone he sees, meaning he has the power of the entire Justice League. Now, since Batman has no superpowers, the android assumes he is not a threat. Until Batman pulls out a piece of Kryptonite, which weakens the android, much to his confusion. And Batman explains that copying superpowers is a double-edged sword. He gets their strengths, but he also gets their weaknesses. Now this is impressive, not just because Batman single-handedly defeated an enemy that the entire Justice League combined could not, but also because he was so quickly able to realise what the android's weakness would be. And even the android hasn't worked that out yet, let alone the rest of the League. And this once again shows Batman's intellect and his impressive tactical thinking. And of course, there's the fact that he just waltzes up to the godlike android, armed only with a rock and an untested theory. Now, I don't care who you are, you've got to admit, that's a ballsy move. He dodges Darkseid's Omega Beams. Now in this universe, Darkseid's Omega Beams are basically really powerful lasers, or disintegration rays, that can lock onto a target, and as they're locked onto it, they always hit their target no matter where it goes. They just zigzag around until they hit their target. And these beams nearly always, and I mean nearly always, kill. Because the ones they don't kill cause catastrophic damage to them. And the only reason they don't die is because, like Superman, they're invulnerable enough to survive being hit with them. But no one seems to be invulnerable enough not to be hurt by them. But in this universe, no one has ever dodged the beams. Until Batman does. And he does this using his agility and his quick thinking, to give the beams another target to use up their power. Now, I will admit that Batman just dodging them without any sort of power-up or special tech or something is a little bit silly, as even characters with super speed have been hit with them. And the fact that Batman doesn't really do anything special, he essentially just jumps out of the way, well, it doesn't actually come across like that amazing a feat that no one else would have ever thought of. But still, it is a pretty badass moment. And you've got to love the idea that Superman isn't fast enough to dodge the beams, but Batman is skilled enough to outwit them. He rides a Kryptonite missile. Now, in this universe, Doomsday was cloned from Superman's DNA by the government in order to use to take out Superman and the Justice League should they become criminals. But Doomsday was too hard to control, and so he was launched into space to just get rid of him. But sadly, the rocket crashed back down to Earth, and he then had his brain heat visioned to nothing by a Superman from another universe. Yeah, it is a little bit complicated, but all you really need to know is the government took Doomsday's body away for storage, and his brain healed. And then a disgruntled employee released him in order to get revenge on his boss, Amanda Waller. But instead, Doomsday kills the guy who released him and then goes after Superman. And this time, the heat vision to the brain thing doesn't work, as you can't beat Doomsday the same way twice, and so Superman is on the ropes. Meanwhile, Amanda Waller has found out that Doomsday is free and has put a general in charge of handling it. But being a military man on a TV show, he of course decides to send a giant Kryptonite missile that will take out Doomsday, and it'll also take out Superman and all the thousands of innocent people that are in the area. Now, Batman can't allow this, so he rides a Javelin down from orbit and then locks onto the missile with the ship's magnetic hull and rides the missile away from everyone, saving the day. And the League then send Doomsday to the Phantom Zone while Batman is recovering from his injuries. Superman and Wonder Woman go in to visit him because he's pretty banged up and very stressed from all of it. And he's also worried that the government is actually right to be scared of the power that the Justice League have. After all, if they did actually turn evil, who could stop them? And Superman jokes that at least Batman always has that piece of kryptonite, and Batman snaps back that he doesn't get to joke, not today, because he just took a bullet for him. And it says a lot that he can tell off the most powerful man on the planet while he's laying banged up in a hospital bed, and Superman just takes it on the chin. But it's not just this moment, but the whole incident that is definitely one of Batman's most impressive moments in this show. He saves the Earth. Now, in the same episode where aliens have occupied Earth, the heroes have to take back the Watchtower and then use it to destroy the aliens' weapon. Now, this is why they actually came to this planet in order to build this weapon. And it doesn't really matter why they built it, all that matters is when they fire it, it's going to destroy the Earth. So it has to be stopped. And when I say that the Justice League is going to use the Watchtower, I mean they're literally crashing it into the weapon from orbit. And Batman is scared that it will burn up on re-entry, so he puts the Flash and Martian Manhunter in an escape pod and then jettisons it so they can't stop him. Then he guides the Watchtower in himself, fully expecting to die in the process. But luckily for him, as he is guiding it in, Superman manages to get inside and get Batman out in the nick of time. But still, sacrificing your life to save the Earth is pretty heroic, and the fact that Superman saves him at the last minute doesn't really cheapen that because, like I said, he fully expected to die. Ace. Now, Ace is a child with Omega-level psychic powers that have grown, so that she could now literally rearrange reality itself into, well, whatever she wants. But this power is too much for her, as she is still a human and still very much a child. And so the power is killing her. Now, the government wants to kill her before this happens, because they're scared of what could happen when she dies with all that power still in effect, as all the things she's changed could be permanent and could grow larger. So they give Batman a weapon to kill her, as he is the only one who could get close enough to her to do it. But he's a hero, not a monster, so he's not going to kill a child. Instead, he sits with her and listens to her talk about her life and how the government mistreated her. And then he holds her hand and waits for her to pass, so that she doesn't have to face it alone. And just before she dies, she puts everything back to normal. And the reason she does this is because Batman actually treated her as a human being. Quite possibly the first time she has ever been treated that way. And it really shows Batman's character rather well, as it shows his strength to not give in to his fear, because he could easily have seen this child as a weapon, like everyone else did, but instead he saw her as a human being, which is what she is. And as such, she is worthy of basic respect. And that's why he treated her that way, because that's what she deserved. Not all badass moments are about punching someone after all. Sometimes it's just about having the strength to actually show some compassion and be a decent human being, which is not always an easy thing to do. Dr. Destiny. Now in this universe, Dr. Destiny can only really use his powers on people who are asleep, because he's able to go into their dreams and trap them in their nightmares. But he's not so good at people who are awake, unless they're in very close proximity. And while the Justice League is asleep, he manages to trap most of them in this state. And he traps them in their dreams, or rather nightmares, of their greatest fears that they can't wake up from. Such as Superman's powers growing so strong that he loses control of them. Or the Flash going so fast that he can't slow down again and is trapped in this super speed state so that it seems like everyone else is a statue in comparison. Now, Martian Manhunter, of course, uses his psychic powers to desperately try and free them. But meanwhile, Batman goes off alone to face off against the psychic powerhouse. And while Dr. Destiny has no problem trapping the rest of the League in their dreams, he never even comes close to trapping Batman, who has no powers other than willpower. And he forces himself to stay awake, as Destiny can use his powers to subtly put you to sleep. And since the closer Batman gets, the more power he has, the worse the urge to sleep becomes. Now, Batman focuses his mind in order to fight this, and of course stops for an emergency coffee, and somehow manages to immediately get service like a boss. He also completely jumps the queue, which as an Englishman I am deeply against, but it is Batman and it is an emergency, so what are you going to do? Now, so far staying awake is enough, as Destiny can only control people in their dreams. But like I said, the closer he gets, the stronger he gets, and he can enter people's minds even if they're awake. And as Batman is so close, he enters his mind. And Batman tells him that his mind isn't a nice place to be. And he keeps Destiny at bay by using focusing techniques, such as humming a tune to keep his mind busy, and stopping Destiny from taking complete control of his mind. And of course, he then beats up the guy who the rest of the League were powerless against. And you gotta admit, that is pretty badass. I mean, the Justice League are essentially gods. Batman's the only mortal among them, and yet he can somehow take out enemies that the rest of them are just powerless against. And those are what I consider to be Batman's most badass moments in the show. Of course, they're not the only ones. He has a lot of great moments in the show, and if there's any others that you think should have been included, then please let us know in the comments, along with which one on this list is your personal favourite Batman moment. And I'd just like to quickly remind everyone that we have some merchandise available on our store, and to say thanks to all of you who have donated to the Needle Mouse Productions page on Patreon. And as always, thanks for watching, and feel free to subscribe, share, like, and comment.